Okay, episode 8, Charm Offensive.
Bring the camera down.
How does it work? It's so magical.
It's so confusing.
Hello,
Welcome to Pluribusters.
I'm John Oliver. This is Kate Winslet.
I love that comment. Thank you, whoever said that. We will credit you. This is Pluribusters, where we get to talk about the latest episode of Pluribus called Charm
Offensive. Yeah.
And we talk about it. Somebody said to me, actually, they were like, this whole thing began with this idea that Ru really loves sci-fi and you really hate it. And actually, they were like, you've really changed, Kate.
There you go. You've been on a journey.
Yeah, but have you been on a journey, though? Because, you know.
I've been on a journey into watching this programme with you.
That's true. It's actually brought something else into our life. We work together, we live together, and it's been an amazing thing to share with this growing community who, I mean, we've had more comments this week than we've ever had.
I know. Thank you very much. I think we should say this video podcast, if you're listening to this, you can click, wherever you're listening to this, you can click on it and watch it in video, in split screen via the marvels of 360 video. We're sitting here drinking Baileys because it's Christmas time. It's Friday afternoon. We should be at a fancy restaurant. That's where we were supposed to be, but here we are recording Pluribus instead because you're not feeling very well.
I'm not feeling very well.
Kate Winslet. Not actually Kate Winslet. If you see it on the video, Kate Dimbleby.
I wish that was Kate Winslet. No, I don't actually.
No.
I nearly bought a flat above Kate Winslet.
I know. I've heard that story. Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway. That was a long time ago. And I am Ru Howe, not John Oliver. And we are in the movie of our lives. Anyway, Pluribusters is a podcast brought to you by Stornoway, Make Anything Interactive. That's the company we run, which is a beautiful interactive software platform. Based here in beautiful Bristol, which you can't see the harbour out of the window here in our living room. It's here to have a living room chat with us because it's so sunny outside we've had to pull the blinds down.
The other reason you can't see it is because our living room has been taken over by the Christmas village.
That's true.
Which you may be able to see.
Well, I think
briefly.
we've shown them before.
We've shown it a bit.
You know.
Anyway, what did you think, Ru? I woke up this morning.
We're supposed to be talking about Pluribus.
I woke up this morning and the first text I got through, because most of our comments come through Spotify, but we do have an early listener who is your sister who lives across the other side of the world. And she texted and she said, "Okay, I'm out." And that was the first thing I read when I woke up.
Because she's 8 hours behind us.
Oh my God, what's happened, Amanda? Why are you out? So I kind of started watching the series feeling this episode.
I know, we were quite anxious,
a bit
weren't we?
nervous that it was all going to go pear-shaped. But I didn't think that. And I now realise that the reason Amanda is out...
Well, I hope...
should we go into it later?
No, she said... I found this episode just plain annoying. How many of you felt the same? I'm interested to know. I really enjoyed it. All those people and just one dog. I mean, that is... So there's a couple of things to talk about. There's been a lot of chat in the comments about animals. About whether the animals are part of this whole thing. Whether, we've talked about it in previous episodes.
Whether they share
Where
hive mind.
are they all?
Where are they all? And Amanda thinks they're on the trains.
Well, that is a depressing thought. I mean, there's one dog in that massive sports centre of 5,000 people or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they I don't know how many people were in there, but one dog doesn't seem plausible given the number of dogs that were around. So either the dogs have all starved to death already, because, they can't feed them any meat. Or, and Manosos has eaten all the dog food.
Why would this lovely hive mind who kind of literally pull up shopping centres for humans?
But the dog food supplies have gone. I mean,
They
maybe
must have had some left.
There would be packs of dogs roaming the city, but I don't know. So it's a mystery. I don't think that the program makers will not have thought about this.
Okay, so maybe all the animals are somewhere.
Yeah, but Amanda, has the idea that maybe they were the ones on the train. That sequence out in the desert. I know we always jump around, but I loved that sequence out in the desert, looking up from the cliff over to the train line.
Yes.
That whole sequence. One of the things that struck me watching it that I pointed out to you was they're very careful in these shows, in Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, but it's become a methodology, that's also here, is in a scene where, I think we may have talked about it before, in a scene where people are talking to each other, they never repeat the same shot. So very often in shows you'll just be sort of, going backwards and forwards, just getting coverage of of over-the-shoulder shots when you could be doing it much more
Yes.
creatively and
You could just do
cinematically.
it in a studio.
And they treat every shot like a photographic opportunity.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That sequence is worth watching again, just for the different
Well,
choices of
and
angles.
that is something that's gone on my journey.
Yeah.
Is watching it with you and having your kind of pointing out some of these things. It makes me enjoy it more. I always used to be one of those people. You know, I'm a musician, and people used to bang on about classical music and how if you don't, unless you talk to someone who knows about classical music, you don't understand it in the same depth. You can still respond to it, but you don't like get into it. And I used to find that really annoying. But now, as I get to this late age, I'm starting to realise what that means, which is that it just helps you. It helps you see more. It helps you listen more. It helps you, taste and feel more. Which brings us directly into Carol and Zosia.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah.
Because it's all about feel and taste and primal stuff. This episode for me, it's like what Carol has been missing. Which is ultimately realised when she suddenly sort of tries to bite Zosia's face off. And I'm interested in that idea of how, I mean, obviously we've been playing with free will and what's going on, and because I'm A, ill, and B, not a sci-fi nerd.
I know you look great. I'm sweating like Albert Brooks at the end of Network. I'm boiling up.
But because of those things, my brain can't cope anymore. I can't Kepler. Like I know that there'll be people like you out there going, oh yes, well the very interesting thing is, and I don't. My brain has checked out. I'm all into just snogging Zosia's face. I mean, I don't actually want to snog Zosia's face, but I do get.
I'm very glad to hear that.
But I get that we've been kind of living in this world where we're trying to figure it out. Carol's trying to figure it out. She's also really miserable. Mm-hmm. There's some interesting themes this episode, I think.
I think. That
was my summary of what I generally felt.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
drinking
good.
other Baileys to help it all come out.
Oh yeah. I think my feeling about it was that it was overall, I really enjoyed it because it was the episode that as the penultimate episode before the finale of the series. We've got one more episode. It was always going to be the episode in my kind of narrative brain where they were going to try and wrap as much stuff up as possible up from the first series and queue you up for the second series, right?
Yes.
And it's like they've been reading all of your comments. It's like they've been reading everybody's minds. They've thought about what everybody's going to be thinking about all of the stuff, about how does it all work. Like Carol spent the episode, instead of being totally narky with them, they were each getting close to each other to get something from the other, and it ended up in them in this relationship, but and the relationship moving on. But through that episode, while they were manipulating her by trying to make everything nice for her, she was pretending.
Yes,
to some
I've
degree,
just
to be
dived
nice to
into
them,
the end now. I forgot the whole bit of the cafe. And
so that she could find out all that information that she was writing up on the whiteboard to try and gather the information. As she said, I'm not going to stop.
And we get a very important bit of information, which is that she realises there's a few things she's realised, and one is that they don't actually know everything. When they were standing on that cliff edge, do you remember? And she said, I love train sirens.
That's right. There's something that they didn't know. She'd not mentioned it to anybody in a way that anybody could remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was they're not telepathic. It's just a repository of remembered knowledge. And everybody's wanted to know.
And we're watching Zosia changing because she's understanding Carol's need. She's starting to respond.
Yeah, they are changing. Why they're changing and how they're changing and how genuine it is interesting. The stuff where she's being snarky and
which is kind of annoying. I do go with you, Amanda. I found that quite annoying.
Which bit?
When she started making jokes about, you're just no good, Carol, or whatever.
You suck, Carol. But it was that. I think it was deliberately cheesy.
Yeah, it was like bad banter.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't like banter at the best of times. No. But that was really bad banter.
But I think it was deliberately so.
Yeah.
It was deliberately sort of clunky. But what I was going to say is, what was I going to say? I was going to say.
Yes, sorry. You would. I did that thing. I noticed that I interrupt you quite a bit.
Well, I probably interrupt you quite a bit as well.
Maybe.
Where were we? We're in our living room drinking Baileys at 2:00 in the afternoon.
You were saying that narrative, it was wrapping lots of things up.
Yes. So it's wrapping lots of things up.
Give us some facts, Ru. Give us some
the
sci-fi
things. I was going
facts.
to try and say the things that people have been wondering about.
Yeah.
How does it work? Do they feel everything? So what we learned is that they don't feel everything. They can remember the thoughts. They can remember the thoughts and the knowledge, but they can't feel everything. So they have individual feelings.
Yes.
And somebody was thinking about hormones and biological kind of individual biological feelings, because we talked a lot in the early episodes about being chemical beings and how much of that experience, that physical experience, is personal versus the kind of ego and the kind of the intellectual engagement. And
so
as
when
you know, I don't
massage,
believe in a very much intellectual it's fine, it's all chatting, but mostly what we're doing is kind of just chemical, and then we put a post hoc rationalization on top of everything.
So glad you said that.
Great.
Because that's how I feel at this time of year.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm done with strategizing.
We do a lot of thinking.
We do a lot of thinking.
But they're sharing all that knowledge, but that physical experience. So how much of that physical reaction of their relationship is actually the she's trying to get Zosia to identify as I, as
yes,
I love
she's trying
that.
to make the ego come out of Zosia.
All the knowledge in the world, and you can't handle a fucking pronoun. What was it? It was brilliant.
That was it.
There were fewer laugh out loud lines in this episode. It's written by a guy who has been in the team for a long time, and he, interestingly, just listening to a little bit of that official podcast, he stepped into Peter Gould's shoes, like Peter Gould, who wrote and created Better Call Saul, would normally have sort of written this and taken this episode and been part of the writers' room, and for some reason he stepped away. I don't know what the story behind that is, but so this guy's stepped in, and he did a good job of bringing it all together. But I didn't laugh as much as I had done. I think maybe
because they were trying, all
they were
that
trying
stuff
to tie it all up.
I was going to say, we've been talking about how lovely the space has been.
Yeah.
The space for all of these people, for all, the reason there's so many comments is because there's so much to kind of think about.
Yes. So we talked about the thoughts and how people feel. We talked about animals.
The comments.
I know. Well, we should get into the comments in a bit. But the animals, we talked about that. We haven't actually answered the question about the animals, except that one dog tells you something that you can infer.
Yeah.
The idea that we're bringing, we kind of knew that it was coming towards a point where she was going to be coming back with the others and forming a closer relationship with Zosia. And then, as I said, we'd get to the end and Manousos was going to turn up at the end of this episode and be like, what the fuck's going on? We knew that
was happening.
Hasn't happened yet, but that next episode's going to be, it's called La Chica or El Mundo or something, and it's the girl or the world. So he's going to be turning up and saying, no, we've got to do this. And she's got to go back to, we've got to save the world.
Yes.
I mean,
because
actually...
Manousos is holding on to the kind of Marxist property as theft, but also the kind of... we've been talking a lot, haven't we, about how big tech... in fact, I've been listening to Marina and Richard, another couple we'd like to model ourselves on. But they were talking about AI, Disney giving all their property to ChatGPT. This kind of world we're entering where everyone expects everything for free. And that ultimately there's got to be a catch. And Manousos knows that there's a catch. He's like, no, I will pay my debt.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, really amazing.
I love that. And
so we know that the setup for the last episode is going to be him and Carol meeting, and there's going to be a decision to make about what they do next.
Yes.
And how important is Carol's writing, the coming out through the pirate lady? Like how much I was interested in that, because I kind of couldn't, because we've got this kind of world setting of Kepler or whatever it is, all the stuff that I can't relate to.
Kettle chips. They come from the planet Kettle Chips near the.
But because I don't get that stuff. I've been really into the human story, but now I'm like, the human story is complex.
I think you're overweighting the sci-fi stuff. They need to tick off some of the things around, like having her talk about, we don't know who they are, we're not in touch with them. We do have a plan where we're going to be, as long as it takes, we're going to be spreading the signal further over. Okay. I mean, one of the things that I started to realise that Carol might be thinking, and I don't think they've said it yet, but I think probably will be maybe part of season 2, is maybe they can't save the world. Maybe there's no way to really reverse it, even though they've indicated that there is. Oh, there's a siren outside. Maybe there's no way to save the world, but but what they can do, maybe their choice is going to be that they have to kill everyone to avoid all of the others. They have to save another world. They have to save whoever this world is going to infect, because, if you think about the galaxy,
do you remember that?
what's happened?
I wrote a song about that.
Which is what?
The end of the Odyssey, I wrote a song called Let's Kill Everyone, because it's about the Odysseus comes back to his island having had all this war and craziness, and in order to find out who's truthful to him, he has to kill everyone or something.
Yeah, they have to kill all the suitors. They
have to kill all the
suitors.
Yeah. So,
but then they also kill all the women.
Yeah, and again, coming back to what's going on in the world, there are these theories, aren't there, that the big guys, the big tech guys, do think that there is this idea
effective
that
altruism.
Yeah,
is the idea that if they kill everybody on Earth,
yeah,
but the human race expands into the stars and the human species goes out into the world and then grows eventually, even if they kill everybody on Earth, that is a price. 10 billion people is a price worth paying for a billion years of humans and hundreds of billions of humans in the future spread out across the galaxy. They're prepared to burn the Earth to the ground. This is Sam Bankman-Fried and that whole group. Effective altruism came from a Oxford academic who was like, if you can make money and that money can make the world a better place, then that's a good reason to make loads of money. And so loads of people start to make money, but then some people with rather limited
humanity
decided that actually intellectually they could take that. I mean, we've both studied philosophy, and there are some ways in which you can take those things too far, and that's what's happening over in the Valley at the moment. We are expendable for the greater good of humanity. Anyway, that's what's that's kind of what's happening in this planet. Is they're going to kill loads of people. The others are going to kill loads of people in order to be able to survive, and so they can take long enough to be able to spread the message further to other people.
And we still are left with this tension that actually when Carol is not resisting Zosia, they're having quite a nice time. The problem is she has her ego, and her ego keeps going, this isn't real. You're not being off. Why are you doing that? The ego is the one that is protecting. I don't know anything.
Well, I love that. I love that sort of scream of despair she had, where she was like, "This is mental illness. You're going to starve to death, and you won't pick a fucking apple."
Yes.
That she kind of she keeps on coming back to the insanity of, she goes and has a nice day with them, and then comes back and reminds herself they eat people.
Yes. It's
and
the cult thing, isn't it? It's the brainwashing.
Yeah.
It's the kind of there's something so strong in her.
Yeah.
She talked about it, didn't she? About Zosia talked about loneliness.
But have you seen how good Nano Banana is at polishing up images and generating really beautiful video scenes? Have you seen how easy it is to answer all of your medical questions with ChatGPT? Have you seen how good Claude is at helping you to do coding? So it's very enticing.
Very powerful.
Yeah. I think that what they needed to do was give her what we've been slightly wondering, where the tension was going to come in the drama.
Yeah.
Of like, we've got all these nice people, and then her angry sad person, and Melissa's angry sad person, how they could keep on drawing the tension out of that. And I think what they've done is built that background of that, and now they've built something that she has got to lose.
Yeah.
Right? She's got this thing to lose. We identify with Manusas as a real hero.
Yeah.
He's going to turn up, and she's going to be in this tension between this world that she can build, where she's writing, and she's got Zosia, and it's a kind of
manageable world.
Yeah.
And everyone likes what she writes.
It's a little bit of her version of what Casanova McBurner is doing.
Yeah. It's a sort of Facebook reality.
Yeah,
it's
she's
like
kind of, the loneliness broke her.
Sounds good.
And she's given up, and now she's in for it. Not completely.
And also, given that we're coming up for Christmas, and I was talking to someone recently about how I'm a terrible present giver because I always overthink what I'm going to give, and then when I do give it, I usually do a little kind of monologue before someone opens it, going, "Oh,
I'm
you
sorry.
probably won't like it, and probably
I think you've probably got it ready."
And there's that brilliant moment with Carol and Zosia where she's like, "Do you like the drink? Is it, you know?" And actually, you're thinking, "Of course she likes the drink. She's like programmed to like the drink." And
that was. I loved one of the things. Technically, one of the things I loved in that scene.
Yeah.
Of like the way that they built it, that like the space of those shots and the emptiness of those shots, but the sound design, it reminded me of Lynch in Twin Peaks. There would be these spaces where he would go out to empty, quiet spaces, and there'd be this kind of the roar of the background sound, and they really amped the sound of the empty room, so that there was if you watch it again, there's a kind of real hiss of the loneliness of that. You noticed at the beginning of that scene when Carol's coming out of the kitchen that Zosia's completely on pause.
Yeah, it's amazing.
She's just completely
like
static, and then as soon as
There's
Carol walks through the door,
there's a few things about Zosia that make her unnerving.
Yeah.
Is she on pause and then suddenly doing that. She's also got such an obvious wig on. Like that's what makes her head so weird.
I don't notice that.
And I was looking at it, and it is initially I was like, I'm not judgmental about this actress's hair, and then I was like, no, this is all intentional,
right?
Because it's really weirdly scooped over her ears, you know. Right. And then the other moment with sound was the two of them when they were having their massage, which again, when I talked about kind of this is about visceral sensuality and what we're losing. Mm-hmm. Again, in a world that is where it's about feeling and feeling bad things as well as good things. But in that, when they both had the massage, at the end of the scene, there was a sound bath person. Sound gong or whatever it's called, and you suddenly realise that's what you've been listening to. It was very, it's very vibrational frequency. I mean that kind of detail is mad, and I like the fact that also we've got one over here. Apparently, the person doing the sound bath was the wife of the key grip. Of course, I love that.
I know.
Well, that's how they keep it human, right?
This is a little prop from Life Moves Pretty Fast.
Oh. Life Moves Pretty Fast was Ru's interactive film that led to Stornoway.
Soothing.
Yeah, there you go. Right, listen, I'm going to go into the comments because otherwise we've got so many. Thank you, everybody. Lots of people saying very nice things about our podcast, so thank you. I don't know what we're going to do when this is over. We're going to have to invent Pluribus
suggestions,
too.
Please. Well, we have actually come up with another podcast idea for next year, which is completely nothing to do with Pluribus. But it is. But we need to figure out if we make some interim episodes.
And
maybe we go back and watch some again.
It's very nice to hear people echoing the things we're feeling. Gavin Bradshaw talking about. I've never watched anything where I'm so transfixed and yet so little happens.
Oh, I know.
I think it's so
true. That was great. So again, for those of you coming to this new, we skipped over some of the intros, but you can see a lot of comments and threaded comments and chat backwards and forwards on Spotify, which is the best of the different podcast feeds for comments. But please also leave reviews on Apple, which is always very nice to read. Thank you very much, those of you who have posted nice things in Apple Podcasts in various different places. It gives us a lovely glow. And YouTube, a couple of people, thank you very much. Almost nobody leaving comments. When I've looked at there are some other podcasts that are available about Pluribus, and there's a couple of some guys who chat in that way that guys chat. I'll be polite, but it is the comments on. There are loads of comments on YouTube. People being really nice. There you go. Being really into them, so that's great.
I love the fact.
Last time I was quite rude about YouTube commenters because we had a couple of people being like, "Why do you even like this show?"
The best thing about this series is it stopped you just coding and brought you back into the world.
Well, kind of into the world.
Anyway, there's too many probably to talk about all of them, but I loved Tam Morley Dunn. I'm a fellow sci-fi geek and a hormonal woman, like basically Ru and Kate bound into one. This is good.
I like that. So what
have I said that I'm a hormonal woman? Yeah, I guess I've kind of made it obvious
a few times. I'm interested in you try and resist your gendered view of science fiction, don't you? But you tend to think of it as being a largely male pursuit.
I do think and I think I've had an education on that, because not least there are quite a lot of the women members of our team who like sci-fi, you know, and I think I just didn't grow up with that. So I've been challenged. I think the problem, as remains with all media, is that the proportion of mainstream media that talks about characters that are appealing to women is like, and there's probably a lot more out there if I could go and find it. And
we might,
you know,
come back on that. Just there's a woman director here, Melissa Bernstein's directed various Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, excellent episodes. Did a fantastic job. You had a thought about the post-coital scene where Zosia was shown with a blanket draped over her, and you were like, that feels a bit male gazy.
Yeah, it's so. I'm very sad. I hate. I find kind of film sex scenes so hard to watch or be in because I feel like the whole form was invented by the male gaze at some level.
Yeah, of course.
And so I was interested that they with a kind of lesbian sex scene, that the thing they'd shown was a semi-naked woman with the sheet draped just over one buttock. And I don't know why. I don't know if that was the draped sheet
thing that pissed you off.
The draped sheet, because it felt so staged. But again, you know, everything you've told me is that maybe there's a reason for everything.
Maybe there's a reason for everything.
Or maybe we're just used to that. I guess they had to signify at some level that they'd had sex, and I think it probably is better than them actually having sex on camera.
It went from kissing to just her waking up and typing. But of course the cinematographer, the director's a woman, the cinematographer's a man.
Yeah, it just felt a bit like, look at her lovely body with the lovely sheet over her one buttock.
Fair enough. As we've already established, you want to snog Zosia. So Scott Aikens on this note says, I'm curious to know from snowy Michigan. Oh, I'm so jealous. It's sunny here today, but cold, and it's mostly been really rainy. I really want some snow, but we're never going to get it. Last snow Christmas here was 2010.
We've been wearing a Hawaiian shirt all the way through.
It's because I'm boiling. I'm having a hot flush. I'm a hormonal woman. As we approach the end of S1, I'm curious to know what Kate, as someone normally uninterested in science fiction, I enjoy your double dashes there as thing. Anyway, but has found to be the most satisfying about the series, and what Ru, as an avowed fan of sci-fi, has found to be the most unsatisfying aspect of it.
Oh, good, yeah. You go first.
Okay. Unsatisfying. Well, the thing is, I am actually largely a fan. This is a non-answer to your question, Scott. I'm largely a fan of sci-fi that is very grounded in human and philosophical and kind of relatable scenes. You know what I mean? So I think the things that I love, even in wild outer space settings, are the ones where humans are funny, and it's so. I mean, I don't know. Things immediately jump to mind. I'll just do the things that jump first to my mind, like Alien, because our daughter just saw Alien for the first time, and she was just amazed by how incredible it was. She's at film school, hadn't seen it. Terrible mistake on my part not to force her to see it beforehand, but it is, you know, a haunted house film basically in space, and actually the sci-fi aspect of it is just a setting. And there is all sorts of other stuff going on in there, as has been written about infinitely. And Aliens, as a follow-up to that, just because my brain immediately jumps to that, that's quite a wild out there setting, although it was filmed in Acton Power Station. Is, you know, the things that are really relatable in that are the kind of Bill Paxton as a guy losing his mind, as a Marine losing his mind. He's very funny, and then the human relationships, you know, the kind of mother-daughter relationship, things like that. In the situation of threat, I think sci-fi puts you into these places where you're thinking, what would I mean, maybe not consciously, but you're relating to the characters, thinking, what would I do in that situation? And so this has ticked all my boxes, really, because it hasn't been heavy on the sci-fi at all,
apart from Kepler.
I think it was Kepler, and I don't know about that either.
Well,
but that was if that was the most sci-fi that this has got, then you've been in luck.
Well, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think the reason I've been obvious about it, that sci-fi hasn't worked for me, is that idea of making me think about. I think I just didn't. You know, I didn't look at space books when I was younger. I remember when the kids were young, and you'd go around to a friend's house, and inevitably it would quite often be young boys, and they were obsessing over planets and things. And just
didn't
never,
care.
just didn't touch the sides for me.
Turns out that's because they were talking to you about Kepler, and you just kept on going, "Oh, Kepler."
But which doesn't mean I'm not curious, and I think that's for me what's exciting about this series, and possibly actually generally this is a theme in my life as you reach this age is that you start being quite curious about things that maybe previously you've kind of gone, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Actually, you're like, that's interesting. Let me look at that from this angle. And I think what good storytelling does is, regardless of the setting, it draws you in and makes you kind of curious and look at it and allow you to access it from multiple angles, you know, literally with the cinematography, but also in terms of the characters. And I think, again, not easy entry for me if sorry, weird phrase, but because I was just going to say, if there's a lot of male characters, it's almost
It doesn't make it better, babe.
It's like a kind of I just can't even start.
So, and if you're going back to something, I can't think about what historical things we watched, but we didn't watch Game of Thrones. But if you watched I don't know, something set in Roman or kind of ancient Greek times or something like that, does the idea of that still make you feel like, oh, I'd rather spend time in South Yorkshire in 2025?
I think I would.
Yeah, there you go. Loving this podcast. Oh yeah, there we go. I need this family's hair care routine, incredible volume. It turns out that we don't have. We just let the hair grow. I think that's
But
thanks. But thank
It's
you
nice.
very much.
Somebody in our I mentioned that to somebody in our team, and they were like, "Isn't it funny how people always want the other thing?" Because I think it's true. I've always wanted to calm my hair down and have lovely, sleek, sort of.
That's
fine.
Literally the least true thing I've ever heard you say. So, can you help me with my irritation with Series 1, says Steve Lewis, that there will be an end without closure. This is that there will be an end without closure. I hate this in TV, really hate it. It's a contemporary malaise. Adolescence was an example of a break from needing to watch something that won't have closure, but pretty much everything wants Season 2. I would love for Vince Gilligan to have the balls to write this as a limited series. I do love that you two are doing this, though. Thank you, Steve. I think it's a really interesting thing. Of course, I mean, there are some fantastic... Apple have done some really fantastic standalone series. A couple of that I really love are... A Blackbird. That's a good one. It's about a guy going into prison to sort of spy on another prisoner. It's very gripping. And there's that one about Jacob and the...
Oh yeah, Finding Jacob.
Is it something?
Refinding Jacob.
Something about Jacob, which is a sort of
crime.
Is he innocent or is he guilty type thing, and it's a sort of thing that could have been milked for Season 2, but luckily they didn't.
I know what you mean, but I actually, because it's taken us so long, like we've been asking all these questions.
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling. Because it actually feels quite short to have a final episode now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of pleased there's another season, because I feel like there are some areas now that I'm bought into the world and I'm bought into again the kind of beauty of the filmmaking and the quality of the characters and the acting. I'm happy to see them through another series, but I do know. I think
like on a sidebar about business, and like I think if we when we started our business, Storm Away Interactive Video, we were looking at interactive production. And the thing with production is you spin a production up, you get commissioning for it, you get payment for it, you deliver it, it finishes, and then you have to start basically a new business. You have to get another commission.
Yes.
And that's the business of production. And production has been very hard in the last few years for a lot of people. And streaming has disrupted all of that. And so getting a series that repeats is a bit like developing a business that you know is going to last, or you hope will last for multiple years, and you can put a team of people together and you can spend all the money on production and keep building on it. And what they've done here is being able to persuade Apple to invest for 2 series. I mean, I'm pretty sure they committed to 2 seasons before they announced that they had done the second season, but so that they could invest in these sets that, I mean, I feel like they've hardly explored the village.
I mean, they've built that whole. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah, they built
that whole set,
the house and all the houses around what they call the neighborhood.
Yeah,
they built them as proper houses, and they did that because they had the investment, because Apple knew that they were going to take it further, and that they could therefore explore essentially a series of books. It's like a series of books, and if you are a novel writer, the publishers will commission you if you they think they can get a series of books out of you, particularly something like genre fiction. They want to know that you've got a character that can repeat for multiple series. So there is a
which is where it
business
can get a
imperative for
bit
it.
sort of like you say, kind of disappointing, because that you're actually just eking it out. Interestingly, I heard some people talk about the way that writers' rooms work now in the US, and that idea that because the actors are so instrumental to the writers now, that actually it is more like theatre. You haven't got a single writer just dreaming it all up. You are sort of creating the story around the people you've got and the setup you've done, and it feels to me that if in the right hands, that is an exciting place to be, because you're exploring multiple people's minds rather than a single kind of genius creator who's going to give you a full arc and a satisfying ending.
Particularly with these people, that they, as I think we talked about previously, Vince talked about how, and Peter Gould talks about this, the thing about you come up with an idea and then you see if there's a better one, if there's a better one, you keep pushing it. That's a good idea, but is there a better one? And you can do that through the process of kind of discursive discussion of things.
And the only problem is, and I think your sister came up with this, which is the danger is we start to sniff that none of them know what's going on.
Well, that was the famous problem from Lost that we talked about when we began the show.
Yes,
is that actually they didn't know. They didn't really know where it was going to, and you get that feeling a lot. But I think that they do know with this. I think they know what the bounds of the story is and where it might go. I mean, I think they noticed to a degree. I think they didn't always know exactly how Better Call Saul was. They knew where they had to get to.
Yes.
They didn't know quite exactly how it was going to pan out.
Well, that's what we talk about with interactive storytelling. Is like you just need to know where you're going to, and then you can, using Stornoway, play with the different ways in which you get there. And I mean,
I got the feeling with Better Call Saul, the last season was a thing where they sort of almost cut to the future. They had a sort of tipping point where everything broke, and then you cut to the future where you knew you were going to get to. And I feel like they maybe do the same thing with this. I mean, actually, maybe they did the same thing with Breaking Bad, but anyway.
Is the place that they
so if they stop getting renewed at season 3, they could always switch into a final few episodes where they tie it all up. The problem with so many shows is that they don't really know where they're going with that, and then they get cancelled, and you never find out what happens in the end. And I feel like they have a bit more of a direction here, and that they're just going to see where it takes them in the meantime. I mean, I think coming back to the actors thing you were talking about before, the amazing thing about Better Call Saul was, as they realised, they knew they had Bob Odenkirk, and he was a very talented comedian and actor, and that he could do lots of things, and they knew they had this other cast of people they could draw on. What they didn't know until they started filming was that they had rheaseehorn, and they all suddenly realised this character that they created, who was Kim, suddenly realised it was, I mean, essentially, in a lot of ways, I always think that she was almost like the main character. Obviously, Jimmy was the main character through but most of Better Call Saul, but she was actually the one through which you were experiencing all the emotions and experiencing. She was the one you were really rooting for, and her perception of Jimmy, and because she can do so much, and I think what we see in all of these episodes, we've stopped talking about it because it's such a sort of core, obvious part of this, but the whole show is built. This whole Pluribus show is built around her and her sort of incredible range that she has to take you to different places in the show.
And yet, I think that Manassas, the combination of Carol and Manassas could be really fantastic.
Yeah.
Like thinking of season 2, I feel like those moments where we've gone, oh God, I can't watch it through Carol's eyes anymore. As much as I love hormonal women. I need a bit of... anyway, so and can you just, for me, given your knowledge of where... Because I feel like... do you think you know what the... Is it that there's a planet, just to kind of spell it out, because again, I do these jokes about Kepler, but is it the idea that there's a planet...
Yeah, it's getting really dark in here, by the way.
That has the combination, it has the answer to kind of human happiness and solving world starvation and unrest, and what is the thing?
Well, that is a very good question. So I think the idea is that there was and maybe it wasn't them, maybe it was somebody before them, but they have been infected by a virus or discovered a virus or discovered some sort of genetic mutation which allows them all to communicate with their other interestingly, we found out this episode, that question everybody's asking, they can't communicate with animals. It's just the humans communicating. But there are some other sentient beings out there who are communicating with each other via this mechanism, and they've discovered the ability to sort of have peace and happiness, and their imperative, they're sort of new, but whereas our biological imperative is obviously reproduction and sort of resource gathering,
snogging people's faces
right,
off.
biting people's faces off, I think you said earlier, which is a bit disturbing. And their imperative is to spread the message, to spread it to other worlds.
Yeah.
So they've sent this message out there to presumably to every star that they can find using the satellite dish that's within range of them, and we picked up that signal, interpreted it, and synthesized it into this virus that infected all of the people, and now the human race's imperative is to send it on to places in the stars that can't be reached by that star, because the universe is vast and infinite, so there's lots of places that
so
star
that's
can't
why
reach.
that's why Amanda's out, is because actually if that doesn't include humans or like
It doesn't include what, dogs?
doesn't include, well, it just doesn't include the actual world, because what does the world do? Well, what do the apples do if they can't be eaten?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, but the bears are going to eat the
fall from
apples,
the tree.
well, as they do. I'm
definitely too ill to go into some of these thoughts.
Okay. But does that answer your question?
Yeah,
about what it's all about?
it's really helpful, because I think sometimes we get a bit vague, and it's sometimes nice to go, what is actually happening?
But what's happened, I think, from like one of the reflections that Carol's having on this, and she draws out, is yes, they're all taken over by this kind of cultish thing that's bent on self-propagation, and they're all like, this is wonderful, but actually the cost of that, as we were talking with the EA effective altruism stuff, is actually that involves lots of people starving, pointlessly not eating the apples, like you say.
And let's not forget that interaction with Zosia, where she's teaching Zosia to use the I pronoun.
Yeah.
And then Zosia suddenly remembers. I think there's a lot about memory here, and like,
right,
what's the point? Like, they have access to all memory, and yet they're only doing it to go, I want to have that day again. I want to have that great time again.
Yeah.
Whereas I think memory, as that speech from Zosia about the ice cream van or whatever it was, there's something there's something else to human experience, which is the sharing of something that you don't know about somebody.
Accessing the guy who's like that they're understanding all these deaths all the time. There are all these deaths and then all these births, and she pauses and she's like, "Oh, somebody just fell on a post."
Yes.
But he's going to be okay. I don't know if she says he actually. It's interesting, a slip in the pronoun stuff maybe there. I don't know. But then actually the thing that really takes her out and makes her really think for a moment is when she hears the news that Monossus is arriving.
Yes.
And you're going to get a visitor, a bit like happened with Casanova.
Yes.
That they're not really feeling, because they can't feel the thing. They can't feel the sadness of those things, and actually it is like they can't learn anything through any negativity.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Carol's all of that.
I need to make one correction.
Yes.
Which my brother pointed out to me, is
just
apparently all croissants in France are not the same price.
Ha! What does he know?
Apparently that stopped in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, good luck for the last episode. What do you have hopes for it? Like what normally Vince Gilligan, come on, let's have a final thing about like what you would think that he would do with the last episode.
That's a very good question.
To kind of leave us wanting more, but not make us really dissatisfied.
I mean, one thing that we do know is we're going to be left on. I mean, if they do their job, we're going to be left on a gut-wrenching cliffhanger, and they are going to apparently take a year and a half before, at least a year and a half to 2 years before we get to the next episode. So that's a big gap. So we're going to be left in that place where we're thinking. I mean, I think you watch something like Slow Horses, which I love, and which come from the books. They wrap all of the books up, and he wraps the books up and they wrap the series up. They're not going to do that here. This is definitely going to be a bit where we have Monossos turns up. They have their conflict about the fact that she's got this new relationship and this new kind of tension between Zosia, and he's like, we've got to stop it all. They also have the idea that they're going to be building this giant satellite to spread the message further, and so that's gonna, that's something that they're going to want to stop, because if they can't save the world, they've got to save the future worlds. And so she's finally got the ally that she wanted, but he's not going to be happy. And we know, we said this before, that seems obvious. So how do they get to a point where they leave you on a cliffhanger of that?
Yeah. We'll see.
Maybe it is Zosia's life is in peril. Maybe it comes down to that.
It's going to be something to do with Zosia, because we've started to see a little glimpse under the wig.
Beneath, maybe the next series of this podcast should be called Beneath the Wig.
Beneath the Wig.
Pluribus, Beneath the Wigs. Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody. Now we can cue your music. Have a lovely next week. See you at Christmas time. Get well, Katie.
I'm feeling such a happy song, just singing and laughing and playing my day along. And oh, why don't you sing along with me? Why don't you sing? You'll see. You're gonna be happy, 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 happy.